Today we're ranking every single card in Merge Tactics from worst to best. Starting with the worst card in the game, we have the Barbarian. Now the Barbarian stats are actually pretty decent because he has Clan and Brawler, and the only reason he was used in the last season is because Clan Avengers was the best comp in the game, so you had to use the Barbarian to use the comp. But because Clan was recently nerfed in the recent update, it won't be as popular of a comp, so you won't be forced to use him as often, and because his stats alone are pretty bad, you would only use him in the 4 Brawlers comp or the Clan comp this season, but other than that, you would never really use him, so I'd say he's the worst card statistically. Next, we have the Archer. Now, the Archer has good traits as well. She has the Clan and the Rangers traits. However, although these were both the 2 strongest traits in the last season, things have changed. The Clan is nerfed, so the Clan is not as strong, and Rangers, in my opinion, right now are pretty bad because they're overshadowed by other good range traits like blasters and fire, so there's no real reason to go Rangers. And also, you have assassins that are really good in this meta because assassins you can get for 2 cards now instead of 3. So, just the combination of the traits being bad and her own stats being pretty terrible, that definitely puts her at the bottom of the list at the second worst. Next up, we have the Pekka, and this is going to be surprising to a lot, but I actually think the Pekka is not a very good card this season because of her traits. I think Ace and Avenger, they're both decent traits, but they're not going to be at the top of the top in this meta, in my opinion. So you won't be using the Pekka as often in the top comps. Now, of course, early game, she's a pretty good card because she's 3 Elixir, she's tanky, she does a decent chunk of damage, but after that early game phase, I doubt she'll be used very often, therefore I would definitely put her more towards the bottom of the list. Next up, we got the Executioner. Now, the Executioner has decent traits. Ace is a pretty good trait, Blaster is a pretty good trait. I think the only reason I'm putting the Executioner above the Pekka is because he has the Blaster trait, and I think this meta, the Blaster will be used a lot more because you have the Musketeer and the Baby Dragon, which are 2 new and pretty solid cards for sure. Now, his stats also aren't the best. I mean, he's a pretty middle of the pack card, I would say, stats wise. And there are also a lot of better ranged options this season. Like, again, you could use the Fire trait, the Ewiz, and so many more other better range cards. So I would definitely put him more towards the bottom of the list. The Princess dominated the last season because Rangers was one of the best traits, but this season I think things will be a lot different. I think Rangers overall is a much worse trait this season because again there are so many other better ranged options, and also coupled that with the Assassins being so strong in this meta that I think Rangers are going to barely be used, and because the Princess is really only used in Rangers decks, and I mean maybe some Noble, though there are, I don't know, Noble is not the best trait either for 4 out of 4 costs. There are other nobles that you could go for 2 out of 4, like the Knight or the Prince or the Golden Knight, and the Princess is usually overshadowed by those in Noble. So I would definitely say that Princess is definitely a worse card this season. Also, the fact that she's 4 Elixir, she's expensive, and she's not that useful in this meta definitely puts her towards the bottom of the list. Alright, next up we have the Dark Goblin. Now, the Dark Goblin follows similar logic as the Princess. The only reason you use him is for the Rangers comp, but the Rangers, again, they're not going to be that good this season, in my opinion. So the Rangers is definitely a no-go. Also, the Goblin, I mean, the Goblin is not a good trade late game. It's only good early game, but you also have the Stab Goblin and the Spear Goblin, which are both 2 Elixir cards. So they are cheaper, more economic option if you're trying to farm Goblins early game, which is really all that Goblins are useful for. And his stats, he did get a recent buff in this recent patch notes, but I mean, his stats still aren't very good. Like, you shouldn't use him over other ranged units that came out. There are so many better units like the Wizard, the Baby Dragon. So for that reason, I would definitely put him more towards the bottom of the list. Next up, we have the Skeleton Dragons. Now, on paper, I thought the Skeleton Dragons would be really good because they divide or they duplicate every couple seconds. And so in theory, you could get infinite Skeleton Dragons. But look, the Skeleton Dragons follow a similar fate as the Princess and the Dark Goblin. They're part of the Rangers, which I don't think is too good. I mean, Rangers you could definitely use as like a 2 out of 4, which would be pretty strong. But I feel like the Skeleton Dragons is either a hit or a miss. If you can fully defend it, which is hard to do in a lot of cases, then yeah, it's a good card. But in a lot of cases, your opponents will be running Assassins or maybe some sort of splash card that will take out these Skeleton Dragons pretty easily. So for that reason, I would definitely say it's not that strong of a card. Alright, next up we have the Witch, and this is going to shock a lot of people. But my opinion is that on paper, the Witch is an amazing card. You have decent damage, decent stats, and you can spawn skeletons practically infinitely as long as you can keep her alive. which will basically give you a lot of mini soldiers to help you fight on the field. And I think the reason the witch is so low for me is that she's really matchup dependent, because if you're facing all like single target units, like let's say a Pekka, a Prince, a Barb, a Knight, the witch is gonna be amazing. But if you're facing even a single bad card against her, then she's gonna crumble and she could even be bad for you. For example, if you're facing a baby dragon, the baby dragon can splash the skeletons, and the baby dragon can activate his ability off of getting kills on the little skeletons. So you don't want the baby dragon to charge up his ability. Therefore, the witch ability would actually be pretty harmful to you. Other examples are that the Golden Knight and the Skeleton King, who are really popular cards in this meta, also the Valkyrie, directly counter the witch and even feed off of it. For example, the Golden Knight, he'll get dashes, the Skeleton King will get more skeletons, and that's really not harmful. It's sort of like having Evo Skellies against the Mother Witch. It's not good for you. Therefore, I would definitely put the witch lower because of how, I guess, punishing she could be against certain matchups. Next up, guys, we have the Wizard. Now, I think the Wizard is a pretty strong card. His traits are good. Fire, amazing trait. Mage is also a pretty good trait if they have a really strong unit. You kind of want to block him momentarily. So I think the Wizard's traits are good. I think where he's not so spectacular is that his stats, I would say, are kind of middle of the pack. And yeah, while the Fire trait is good, you kind of want that more for the Baby Dragon. So for that reason, I think the Wizard is, look, he's going to get a lot of value on the field, but he's kind of more, he's not like the main character is what I'm saying, though he is a pretty strong card. Next up, guys, we have the E-Giant. Now, the E-Giant follows a similar fate as some of these other two trait cards you're going to see, and that the E-Giant is pretty much useless unless you have the electric trait with it. If you don't have the electric trait with it, like his stats aren't that good, his sole ability without the trait isn't that good, it's not going to get too much value, no carry potential really, and because his traits are so defined, you kind of need, it's not really going to help buff up other traits as much. For example, you can't just use this to get like a 2 out of 2 noble or anything like that. They could do it with a lot of other cards. So his stats aren't too good. So baseline, he's pretty mediocre. But if you can get the 2 out of 2 electric buff, I think he's a very, very solid card to use. So I think he's just, the fact that he's very dependent on the trait will kind of put him towards the middle of the pack. Do I think he's a bad card? Absolutely not. We're just sort of getting into those middle of the pack ranks. And look, it's very situational from now on. If there are other better cards that can perform without their traits, which is the reason I'm putting him a bit lower on the list. Next up, guys, we have the Prince. Now, the Prince recently did get a rework. His damage increased, but his hit rate decreased. Now, the thing with the Prince is, I think the Prince right now is actually in a really good spot because he has the Noble trait and the Brawler trait, which are both pretty good. Having 2 out of 4 Nobles is obviously very useful, and having the 4 Brawlers is actually a really meta comp right now. I'd say it's definitely one of the best, the strongest comps in the game, the 4 to 4 Brawlers. So the fact that he can get so much impact in that comp is very strong. He's practically unkillable when he's in that comp, so he's very strong in that comp. Other than that, though, I don't think he's very useful. Like you wouldn't use him as frequently as you did last season when you had the Rangers, and for example, you'd want the Prince to knock back the Arch Queen. You wouldn't really have that sort of interaction in this meta, which is why I don't think he'll be as useful. Also, the thing is, Juggernauts are very strong in this current meta, and the fact that his stun can kind of get nullified by that Juggernaut shield would definitely lose him some points this meta. Next up, we got the Royal Ghost. Now, guys, I think the Royal Ghost is very solid this season because his traits are good. Undead, pretty solid trait this season. Assassin, amazing trait. I think Assassins are genuinely one of the best, if not the best trait this season because of its low commitment. In the past, you had to have 3 Assassins to go overboard, and if you had 3 Assassins, it was a huge commitment because 1, it took half your comp, and 2, they didn't even get really any real stat boost like other traits offered, but now you could just chuck in 2 Assassins and that would get huge value because you could take out their backline, you could contest their backline for a very low cost, and you could help draw them back and have the rest of your team be very strong. So I think Assassins are very strong. The Ghost is one of the best Assassins as well because, I mean, he's just overall a solid individual card. His stats are pretty decent, and he's using a lot of the top comps. For example, the comp I love to run is the 4 Juggernaut, 2 Assassin comp, and I always run the Ghost in that comp because of his traits as well. So for that reason, I would definitely say he's a very solid card this season. Now we have the Knight. The Knight has 2 very solid traits. Noble, very good 2 out of 4 trait. Juggernaut, an extremely good trait. The Juggernaut got buffed, so that the Juggernaut troops that have the shield now are CC immune. By CC immune, I mean that they can't get affected by effects like stuns, which were very broken in the past. Now you could shield your entire squad basically and have them immune to stuns for the first half or even more of the match, which is extremely strong. And because the knight is so cheap, he's only 2 elixir, and he has good traits, decent stats for his cost, he's a very reliable, cheap, and go-to Juggernaut to just buff up your team, give them that whole Juggernaut buff. So therefore, because he's a very easy go-to Juggernaut player, I think he's a very solid card this season. Alright guys, we have the Bandit. Now this is a controversial one. The Bandit's fall off needs to be studied because the Bandit was the #1 card in the last season, in my opinion. Because the Bandit, when she's 3 stars in the last season, she was able to stun after every shot, and it would just basically perma-stun the entire team. But in the recent update, the Bandit did kind of get a shadow nerf, you could say, because the abilities for every card were reworked. And so now the Bandit doesn't actually load her ability as frequently. She has to take more time to get her stuns in, even at 3 stars. So now she can't just stun every hit. It takes her a lot more time to really load up that stun and get her impact in through that way. However, I would still say that she is a decent card because while she won't be stunning as often, her stuns are still pretty impactful. And her stats are pretty good. Her traits are very good, by the way. Ace is a decent stat as always. Assassins, again, one of the best traits in this season in my opinion. And so for that reason, you could use her as an assassin, you can use her as an ace, and she'll still have a pretty good stun ability, but because her ability was nerfed, I just think she's a more balanced card this unit, which is very good. Okay guys, coming in at number 12, we have the Spear Goblin. Now look, the Spear Goblin, is he a good late game unit? Absolutely not. But the Spear Goblin, because he's so strong early game, because he's 2 elixir, he gives you the Goblin trait, which can help you really farm a good economy early game and snowball that elixir advantage. Because he's one of the best early game cards, I would definitely put him at the number 12 spot. Now, of course, there was something that recently came out. The Empress does give you +3 elixir per merge. I don't know if that's a bug or a feature, but I'm assuming right now that it's a bug. If it's a feature, then that would mean the Goblin isn't as useful, but if that's a bug, and we would assume that the elixir would go back to normal, then the Spear Goblin is still a very strong unit. Okay guys, at number 11 we have the Stab Goblin. Exact same logic as the Spear Goblin. Very good Goblin trait for early game. Stats are okay. I mean, look, he's an early game warrior. He's not really for the late game as often or as much. But I'll say the Goblin is a bit better than the Spear Goblin because he has the Assassin trait. And the Assassin's, of course, one of the best comps. And even late game with the Goblin, you could potentially get a 4-star Stab Goblin, which would even be a solid late game card. So for that reason, I think the Goblin is a very solid card this season. Now, the Musketeer, guys, is a very solid card. She has the Noble trait, very good, buffs your front and your back line. 2 out of 4 trait, extremely good. And we have the Blaster, which is a very good trait this season, I would say, because you can have the Baby Dragon and the Musketeer to get that 2 out of 4 Blaster trait and really buff them up a lot. The Musketeer is seen in a lot of Noble and Baby Dragon fire comps, so the Musketeer is a very popular card right now. Her stats aren't remarkable. I mean, her stats are pretty mediocre, decent, I guess you could say. Her basic attack doesn't do that much damage, but her ability is quite good because how her ability works is she can knock back multiple units after a certain period of time, so after her ability charges up, and that knockback can be really good in clutch situations because you can stun the enemies and allow your units to kind of DPS them down while they're stunned. So her ability is pretty good, her traits are very good, she's used in a lot of comps, therefore she is a pretty solid card. Next up, guys, you have the Electricity. Now, guys, I think, as I explained earlier, he's pretty good. He's decent when he doesn't have the electric trait. He's not too good. He's mediocre. His stats are okay. His ability, his multi-shot's pretty good, actually. But where he really shines is when he has that 2 out of 2 electric trait. That's when he's actually a very solid unit. So if you can get that 2 out of 2 electric trait, he's going to be a very strong, menacing force on the field. His mage trait is also pretty good. If they have a really strong card, you can turn it into a bunny, which is going to be so helpful in some scenarios. But because of the fact that you kind of need that 2 out of 2 electric trait to really get the value out of him, we're not going to put him at the top, but he's still a very solid unit. Okay guys, now we are getting into some of the strongest cards of the season. At the number 8 spot, we have the Archer Queen. Now the Archer Queen did fall off She used to be a top 2 card in the last season. Absolutely one of the best clutch cards of the game. But now the clan did get a nerf, and the existence of Clan Avenger has disappeared. You can't use that comp anymore because the Valkyrie's trait from Avenger switched to the Juggernaut, meaning that it's impossible to have those two traits in a single comp maxed out, I guess you could say. You could still probably do the 2 out of 4 Avenger, but the comp is not as good as before. Now you can still run some pretty strong clan comps, so that's why I'm not counting her out. She's still a phenomenal card, but there are a lot of better comps you could use in this meta, which is why she is coming in at the number 8 spot. Still a strong card, just not as strong as in the past. Alright guys, coming in at number 7, we have the Goblin Machine. Guys, the Goblin Machine is such a good card because number 1, you have the good traits. Goblin is a pretty decent trait for economy as always. Juggernaut is a very good trait this season because, again, as I mentioned, all Juggernauts become CC immune when you have the ability, when you have the trait active, meaning that they can't get stunned when they have the shield activated. I think Juggernaut is a top 3, if not top 5 comp or trait this season because of that fact, that one fact. And Juggernaut, the 4 Juggernaut comp is one of the best comps this season right now because, again, they're all CC immune. They're so tanky. You just can't kill them, and you just really can't stop them with your stuns or damage. And the Goblin Machine stats are also pretty good, and his ability is where he shines because he can basically infinitely stun other units with his missiles. Now, the fact is he did fall off slightly because his stuns won't actually have an effect on Juggernauts, but because you often run Juggernauts yourself, facing Juggernauts won't be as big of an issue because they won't be leveled up because you'll have a lot of the Juggernauts too. Therefore, I still think he's a phenomenal card this season. Alright guys, we have the Giant Skeleton next. The Giant Skeleton actually did get a buff in the previous patch notes. He did get a 50% damage increase. Now that I believe that is significant. And one might think, wow, that is insanely broken. And that's pretty true. He does a lot more damage. But I would say the one caveat to that is if you're facing Juggernauts, the big strength of his bomb used to be more of a stun. I mean, his damage, yeah, of course his damage was significant, but his stun was also very useful. But now that stun is eliminated when you're facing Juggernauts, so his impact goes down slightly, especially when you're facing that comp. However, I would say that his increased damage is definitely super noticeable. Extremely strong. His traits are both good. Brawler, Undead, 2 absolutely meta traits this season. Therefore, he's definitely one of the best cards to get a hold of. Alright guys, now we're at the top 5. We're getting to the true best cards of the season. At the number 5 spot, we have the Mega Knight. Now, the Mega Knight right now is such a strong card because number 1, he has the Brawler trait. The 4 Brawler comp right now is absolutely insane. The Brawlers recently got a buff to double all of their HP. So when you have the 4 Brawlers, the Mega Knight is genuinely unkillable. He has like over 10,000 HP. I don't know the exact number, but something insane. His ability also got reworked. So his ability is so strong right now. I mean, it's always been strong. But basically, every time the Mega Knight jumps, especially at 3 stars, he has a literal earthquake stunning everything around him. It's so strong. So the fact that you can have the Mega Knight in one of the best comps right now, have him basically unkillable with the 4 out of 4 Brawlers, and have him basically infinitely just jumping up and down, earthquaking everybody, just stalling so much for your team, definitely puts him as one of the best cards in the game. Alright guys, at the number 4 spot, we have the Skeleton King. I think the Skeleton King is the second best champion, which is ironic because now the Queen is the last, and the Queen used to be arguably the first. But the Skeleton King, look, his abilities are great. He has Undead, a very meta trait this season, and he has Juggernaut, one of the best traits in this season. Again, I explained earlier why Juggernaut's good, but the Skeleton King, why I believe he is above the other 2 Juggernauts, is because specifically the 4 Juggernaut comp. Listen, when you're running 4 Juggernauts and 2 Assassins, the Assassins will jump over to the backline, and the 4 Juggernauts, well, often what the opponents will do is that they'll anti-assassin, right? And they'll have that sort of triangle formation. But the thing is, when you have the Skeleton King, he's able to splash that anti-assassin placement when the assassins hop over, giving him so much value. Now, second, the Skeleton King is really good this meta against the Witch because every time the Skeleton King kills one of her skeletons, he spawns his own. So he's a direct counter to the Witch. So overall, he's a very tanky card. His stats are good. His traits are amazing. He counters so many meta cards and comps this season, which is why I would definitely put him at the number 4 spot. Alright guys, kicking off the number 3 spot, we have the Valkyrie. Now this might be surprising because the Valkyrie just changed from Avenger to Juggernaut, and I think intuitively most people would see that as a bad switch because the Avenger clan comp used to be the best comp, so you'd intuitively think, well, you're taking out one of the cards from the best comp, so I guess that'll be a nerf. But no, the Juggernaut, in my opinion, is one of the best traits in this game at this moment because, again, the CC immunity is so impactful, and the fact that the Valkyrie is just so good. Right, stat-wise, amazing. She's so tanky. She's splash damage, which counters a lot of cards. You can counter the Ghost, the Witch. You can just have this huge area splash damage effect, and she's a very cheap 3 elixir card. She's used in so many comps. You could use her in 4 Juggernauts. You'd often use her in 4 Brawlers as well to buff up your Juggernauts. You could use her in Clan. You could use her in so many more. She's a very flexible, cheap card. Stats are good, traits are good. So I think she's definitely coming in at the number 3 spot. Now, of course, she's not as flashy as some of these other units, but she's definitely a solid card there. Alright guys, the second best card in the game is 100% the Baby Dragon. Guys, when the Baby Dragon was first announced, I thought he would be pretty bad because I didn't think the trait would be too good. Stackable damage. You don't know how much stackable damage, so I thought, okay, maybe it wouldn't be that much. Like, maybe 20%, I don't know. Nothing insane. But the stackable damage is 40%, meaning that every time the Baby Dragon gets a kill, his damage goes up by 40%, which is absolutely insane. As a side note, whenever he gets a kill and retargets, he immediately starts shooting. He does so much damage as well, and his splash radius is humongous. So the fact that his stats are amazing, the blaster is also a very good trait. His area is so large, his damage output is insanely high. He's using so many meta comps. And his stats are also extremely good. He has so much carry potential. He's just honestly overall a very powerful, well-rounded card that can often carry a lot of your games, especially when he's paired with the Wizard. So for that reason, he's coming in at the number 2 spot. Now guys, the best card in the game is the Golden Knight. Now guys, I think the Golden Knight, I don't know what it is, but from the last season to now, the Golden Knight got insanely stronger. Let's look at the first statistic. His traits are amazing. Noble is a good trait. Assassin, another amazing trait. He's the best assassin. Now, number 2, right? There's so many ranged units that were added in this update. You have the Wizard, the Baby Dragon, the Witch, the Musketeer. All these squishy units that when you have the combination of Assassin being way lower commitment and being so much more popular in meta, and the fact that he counters every single one of the new cards, makes him insanely strong because when he gets that first kill, he goes insane. The whole basis of the Golden Knight in the last season was that if he got that first kill, he would get insane value. But the question in the last season was, because there were so many tanks in the last season, you didn't know if he would get that first kill. So it was a bit of a risky card. But now this card is so much less risky because he's less commitment, because Assassins, you only need 2 cards to activate the ability. And number 2, there are so many good ranged units, so many popular ranged comps in this meta that you're almost guaranteed to get a kill with the Golden Knight if he is high starred. So for that fact, he's such a consistent and overpowered carrying card that he's definitely the best card in the game.